us to have. So we are officially recording, and I wanted to welcome everyone. I appreciate your willingness to participate this morning. I picked 7:30, keeping in mind a lot of people work and a lot of people don't work at 7:30. So when we're doing the next meeting, remind me to ask you what a better time might be, unless this time works. Mr. Bodner and I are here super early, so this is not a problem, but if it's not good for you, we can adjust sometimes. So just a couple of things before we get right into it. We're going to really focus on class of 21. That does not mean by any means that the other students, aren't a focus as well. We have 963 kids here. And what I did last year when COVID hit, March 13th, changed our world significantly as educators. We left thinking we'd be out for a couple of weeks. We never returned and had an entire summer. And nearing the halfway point of the trimester, the class of 2020 was starting to really get concerned, like, what's the end of high school going to look like, and how are we going to do this so it's memorable and positive in a pandemic world that none of us had experience with. So I got a group of parents together. I added some students as well, and they really helped drive some great decisions. And we've received excellent feedback on the class of 2020 on how the year ended and all of the recognition. It wasn't the same, but I don't know if we'll ever be the same again. So that's the intent of this committee as well. Your input will help us make decisions. And one more person coming in, sit tight. And one of the things I did want to mention, why you were selected. I didn't just randomly pick people. I didn't stack a committee with people who agree with me and always send me nice supportive emails. I selected you, to be honest, because you've been very comfortable, in my opinion, sharing any concerns you've had, but you've done so in a respectful way, which I appreciate. And when I say a respectful way, I did not invite anyone to this meeting who I thought would share input that would deter others from participating. That's really important. So it's a compliment to you. I always value parent input, but I'm not having anyone participate in this committee that's going to stifle other people and make us uncomfortable for talking. So your opinions matter greatly, or I wouldn't have asked you to be part of this. And what I ask is that you say whatever you need to say, and we all embrace the fact that we're here with the best interest of our students in mind. But I might say some things you don't like either. And I'm hoping you don't join the Facebook bandwagon and post it and go that direction, but that's totally up to you. But I do think we need to be comfortable having some uncomfortable conversations, and I value your input over time at hand, so I want that to continue. So it's truly a compliment, from coming from me to select you. We have 286 seniors in this class, so there's a lot of parents to choose from. The easy thing to do is to stack a meeting with everyone who's going to say what you want them to say, but I really want to keep in mind what's in the best interest of our students. So I want to just talk very quickly about what we're doing currently with our seniors, just so you have an idea. And then I want to open it up to what you're hearing from being a parent of a senior and some suggestions as to moving forward. The class of 2020 was impacted for a trimester. The class of 2021 has clearly the potential to be impacted for their entire year. And with COVID cases really jumping at an alarming rate all around us, Mr. Bonner and I were talking yesterday, I do think if we were all betting people and bet what was the over-under date if we'd be out of school by October 23rd and all online, most of us would have said we never would have made it to October. So the fact that we're still here is excellent, but I do think the COVID spike right now is alarming, and we're so close to being all out, and I want to figure out how we can support this senior class moving forward. So we did survey the seniors last week, and we asked them about the senior picnic. And we first started with two choices that said, do you want it now, or do you want to just wait for in the spring to see if conditions are suitable? And that's a huge if. We added a third option that said we will do a cohort picnic on Wednesday and Thursday next week, And then if conditions are okay, which that's a huge if, in the spring, we'll do a full senior picnic in the spring, which we've never done before. And 60+% of our students selected that option. So we are doing that next week. You know, we're watching the weather already. You know, here we go. We have some rain or possibly snow dates in the mix as well. But we're also, we've heard the kids say that we do need a break. So on the cohort days, if it's not my day, you know, Bodner, Salutary, we're in different cohorts. So when the Bodner cohort has the picnic, we're giving the other seniors that time off during the school day. So they're not off the entire day, but they got a few periods off to do whatever they need to do, which we think will be well received. And then they flip the next day, and the same thing applies with different groups. I am working with teachers. I don't know how many of you actually know or are teachers, you know, not easy at the high school level, about lightening the load a little bit during that time. And, you know, one of our challenges is lots of our kids take AP courses. You know, AP courses are out of our hands. The College Board defines expectations. We can't lighten that load, but we are really looking at those 2 days next week to give our students the break they've been asking for. Let them just, you know, even if they don't want to have a big celebration, it's a picnic, it's not a celebration, to get some time, have a little fun, and we'll actually get them out of the building about a half an hour early as well. So they will pick up some time to relax. And we talked to the class council, and they're embracing that at this point. You know, it's interesting, you know, a lot of parents have pushed for a senior picnic, the kids have pushed. And then once we organized it, the kids are like protesting that we're doing it because it's not exactly meeting their needs, because they can't be in an entire group. We're not allowed to have more than 150 people outside together. That's not my rule. It's not the superintendent or the Board of Ed. We're in phase 3, and it's 150 person maximum. So we're going to be we'll probably be a little over it, but don't tell anyone, even though this is being recorded when we add staff. But we're just truly not allowed to have that number of people gathered outside. So we are looking at what our other steps are going to be for our entire school. I have an 8:30 meeting with the counseling department to review the input from the small group meetings that happened last week and this week with our entire school. And we're going to be putting together, we hope, some positive things that are on the coping skills and mental health topics to help our students, you know, who are dealing with a variety of different issues, not just COVID-19. So there's a lot going on. You know, I haven't heard what the feedback exactly was during each of the student groups, although that was shared at a board meeting that we surveyed the parents, and, you know, this is what was said. I don't even know what was said yet. We haven't had the meeting to wrap up with the counselors because most of the meetings with small groups took place in person, but we have about 40 or so students who are remote only learners. So after our in-person meetings wrapped up, the counselors had to organize the remote learner meetings, and they just finished those on yesterday. So I didn't want to touch base with them until we had that. So, you know, that's kind of a summary of what we've been doing, where we're going, why you've been selected, and, you know, what we're doing next week as well. Mr. Bodner's the administrator for the class of 21. That's why he's here. So he'll be sending some positive messages to the senior class and include the parents next week, you know, with a little more detail about the picnic, a little bit more detail about the time off that we're building in as well. And I did email the superintendent and assistant superintendent this morning before our meeting and asked the assistant superintendent, who is in charge of curriculum, that I need her to come and talk with our AP teachers and see if there are any options. You know, some of the other courses that are our courses, we do have some flexibility. The AP courses, we don't have much. So I asked her to take that lead. You know, central office, and this isn't negative, they get in a little later because they have to kind of operate under the entire school day. So I don't have a response to that. But we are making some attempts based on initial feedback we've been receiving. So there are updates from me. I would love to hear from your point of view, and I'm taking some notes once we start talking. So, you know, with that, I can't minimize a Zoom when I'm recording it. I didn't know that new feature. So I'll take some handwritten notes. I was going to open Word up and do that as well. So I'm not doing something else, but if people want to jump in on anything I said first and foremost, or we can get right into the stressful experience our seniors are going through right now. And I think the fact that it doesn't look like there's an end to COVID in sight. So it looks like we're going to be in this model for a while. And, you know, it could be a worse model and be all online if we have cases. You know, thankfully, every red flag that we've had has not tested positive. And that's been really, we hold our breath. And there's been a lot of quarantines for a couple of weeks of staff or students. And thankfully, we've had good results thus far. But we all know it's, you know, it's only a matter of time before we have a case. But that doesn't automatically mean complete shutdown. So if you're muted and you're going to talk, obviously, don't forget to unmute yourself. And it's not a raise your hand type meeting. So just jump in. I'll sit back and listen. And if I have any input, I'll share, and Mr. Bodner will as well. So anyone who wants to take the lead, start up.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the fact that we're all getting together and getting feedback. I think the key to the success here is that as many people can get a voice as possible to try and find some middle ground on what we're doing here. And also that I think the timing of the kids having a lightning load and a picnic and a little bit of time off on their cohort, the opposite cohort while the other cohort has a picnic, is really important, as a lot of these students have November 1st deadlines for college applications.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, TJ, you asked about the kids' perspective. Like, you know, if I'm here to represent Grace and kind of just have my mom hat on and not my social work hat on.
Yeah, keep your mom hat on.
Yeah, I know, it's hard to do. You know, she's feeling really frustrated. I see her stressed in a way I've not seen her before. I think the kids feel unheard. I think the year started well. Like, you know, you had an assembly and that was really impactful to her. She really like felt like you got it. She feels like you have it, but she doesn't get that from other adults. And I think that, you know, if they have a venue or some kind of opportunity like they did on Monday to speak with other adults, talk about their frustrations, I think that was really helpful. I mean, I think it opened a floodgate. I know it did for her. But since then, like, she seems just calmer and a little more centered. I think she feels really sad that she's segregated from half of her class. She vacillates between, like, I understand because it's a COVID thing and Mr. Salutario only has so many choices, to I'm really just mad at every adult because they're not bringing us together. Like, I think the kids are just kind of going back and forth. I worry about what will happen if they're feeling so socially disconnected now. I worry about what will happen if we go full out, right? How will we protect the kids that way? I think she's feeling really unsupported through the college process. I think because we went out in March, there was so much missed, you know, so much guidance stuff that they could have received. So they're feeling a little on their own, a little more independent than maybe they want to feel. They really want to do whatever they can to be together. They really want to be in school. Grace wants to be in school every day, you know, and I know there's a lot that goes into that, but there are ideas that have been filtering around. I don't know if it's something that ever can be considered, like just the seniors are in 5 days a week, or we switch up our cohorts and we have like A is upperclassmen and B is lowerclassmen. I don't know if that's, I get that your hands are tied and there's only so much we can arrange to accommodate the kids and their feelings, but I do worry for them just in general.
That was very helpful, Missy. And just a couple before other people jump in. Part of my meeting at 8:30 today, our counselors we're going to try and plan, like we're calling them Wellness Wednesday, where we give kids opportunities to have meetings with with counselors and other support staff members who are trained. Teachers, you know, aren't trained to be mental health experts, and we don't want to put them in that spot. That's not their role. A lot of teachers are uncomfortable with it and not good at it and not qualified. Principals too. I mean, that's not what we're trained to do. So we are looking to have something built in every Wednesday and possibly even build in a little break within the school day for kids as well. So that's one of our focuses, which we think is very positive. The one message that I did hear loud and clear, even though I didn't get the update from student input, is the fact that kids are having more trouble this year connecting with teachers because first, they're not here as much. And secondly, they're in this mode. And if you've engaged with anyone in conversation, it's hard to know what the other person's emotions actually are and what's going on. I had about 6 student meetings yesterday that I thought were all really good. And I had asked the kids, you okay? Because I could not tell because we all had masks on. So one of our focuses on this work on Wednesdays is how can we plan something that will continue if we're online? And we can still make those connections, because that, if we're struggling connecting with kids right now, which we certainly are in this model, if we go all online permanently for a couple of weeks, couple of months, or even worse, that's going to be a super challenge. So that is one of the key focuses of what we're doing. And the counselors, I put a big heavy lift and they're trying really hard to meet that. They're overwhelmed too. I have to make sure I don't, require them to need some mental health support as well. But that was great. I just wanted to give you a little update that I didn't share. So I'll stop talking now.
Okay, I guess I'll talk. Hi, good morning, everybody. I think I'm going to kind of echo that last sentiment, that the words I'm hearing from my daughter is kind of hopeless, unheard, withdrawn, sad, isolated. I think the transparency of the plans has kind of been a huge hit of the fact that the high school will not go back full-time for the foreseeable future, which I think they're all hearing they're all hearing that loud and clear. I just wanted to see if there's any hope that we can have any consideration for these alternative issues. I think 963 kids, I don't know what can fit in the room. Are we going by the American Academy of Pediatrics 3 feet guideline or by the CDC 6 feet guideline? The issues about the hallways, I think kids just aren't hearing the data that you're using to make these decisions, or if there's anything being done to try to make it better. They're at this very, very emotional part in their life, right? So it's college, it's their senior year, and they're feeling kind of disconnected, which is a very scary thing. And I think that we talk about school as this academic place and social place and all these other places. For many kids who are on the quieter side, it's really that time, that forced connection, that forced interaction with their peers. And I think that through losing that for sometimes 3 days a week, so you're only having 2 days of connection, those opportunities to make those connections is just being lost. And so those people are becoming more withdrawn. I think, sorry, everybody, I just swiped you off. I have a daughter who is on the quieter side, and I thought it was just me. And then I've talked to other mothers who have kids that are very outgoing and very social, and they're reporting the same kind of feelings, is that they're just kind of withdrawing from everything. Most of us have probably high achieving students. They're withdrawing from their classes, withdrawing from college applications. Some of that I'm sure is a normal teenager thing of rebellion, but they're really kind of just saying it's just not, what are we doing this all for? So I think listening to them, how they're feeling, I think transparency of the plans, of why these plans have been made, and I think to the parents that would be appreciated too. Why is there no opportunity, or why is there no plan to try to make it better? With what space do we have in other buildings, or even, I know everyone laughs at this, but just those temporary portable classrooms, something that could make it work. The numbers are kind of hopefully leveling off in Connecticut this week. That's what we're hearing. But I think that even if it's for the spring, could this happen for the spring if we did A, B, and C? And we have plenty of time to make it work, just like we did last spring where we made lots of plans. The last idea I have is, I know that last year a lot of the spring events started off at school grounds or started off here, and then they kind of went to other locations. And went off the grid a little bit. It went out of the realm of the guidelines. Because it wasn't a school event at that point. Are we willing to start events at the high school and then, you know, do a trail around town to celebrate their senior year and end up with the surf club into a non-school event that these kids could feel some kind of semblance of togetherness? Just an idea.
And just, I mean, a lot of good points. This is, again, why I asked all of you to be part of this. We've been running scheduling options and suggestions. You know, it's ultimately not my decision, and I'll own every decision. I don't point fingers. That's certainly not my style. But we are following the guidelines of a 3-foot minimum in classrooms. You know, we're not, 6 feet's not an option even when we're half here. And with that, we are trying to get some approval to basically, we're asking for approval to say, can we let kids come in a environment that does not meet the safety guidelines? I mean, that's a heavy statement. So we're going to be, if I say I'm going to bring the senior class in on Mondays, for example, every senior classroom where it's just seniors, the kids will be far less than 3 feet apart. And, you know, on one end, it's great to have the seniors in here. On the other end, we will have to get approval to do that, that's tough for someone to say, okay, you can do that. And we have a whole other group of parents who are really nervous that we're going to do that. So it's interesting. We've been, again, we actually, I bought 120 tape measures, you know, from Amazon over the summer, and we gave every teacher one, and we've, you know, I shared the data at the last PTO meeting. We have 162 classes this trimester, if we're all in, have far less than 3 feet of space. And we have about 300 classes that run every trimester. That's how many sections. So we're talking really tight. So we need approval to do that. But if we do get approval, then we have a whole nother group of people who are really upset with us. So I have been engaging in conversations with Dr. Patty Foote, and we're trying to brainstorm options. And we hit a wall lots of times when we look at the space, and we have to meet with, you know, people who have titles in the health department, for example, and we have to share that information, and we get a hard no, you can't do that. So we are trying to brainstorm some options. I actually was on a text messaging tweet with a superintendent I know and an administrator I respect a lot last night, and trying to brainstorm some high school scheduling options that they're doing in other districts to see if it works. You know, hand's not big enough. That's our biggest dilemma right now. So if you have a brilliant suggestion for scheduling, send me an email with it, because I won't promise that I've thought of everything, because there might be some suggestions that we have not thought of. But anytime we have a good idea thus far, the roadblock really is the lack of the ability to distance in the classrooms. And that's on the teacher level as well. So I do really encourage, you know, I don't want to go through like all the scheduling options with you now, but if you've been thinking of a really good one that maybe I haven't, send me an email with some details and I'll see if we can make something work, because we're in the middle of a conversation right now of trying to rotate every grade in here. So each grade has a chance to be in here occasionally together, all of them. But one of the challenges is the classes that meet only by grade level, like the freshman class, their English classes. Those are really difficult to manage. But the super and I have been going back and forth trying to figure out how we can put something together to share with people who make decisions about safety who could say yes to it. So we definitely haven't been sitting static. It's just hard. We get told no a lot. And I'm not frustrated. I'm running out of some thoughts. So I would love some ideas. So all of you have my email. Send me some if you have them.
And just to add to what TJ was just saying, that we have really truly not since July, I think, had a week go by that we haven't spent a minimum of 5 to 6 hours minimum. I think there are weeks we probably spent 20 to 30 hours in August and September on trying to, what TJ said, figure out ways that we could bring more kids in, or if we had good results. And The one other thing that TJ, I know it's been mentioned in some of the superintendent's messages, but the other factor that we consistently run into, and it has to do, as TJ said, with size, is with lunch. We're required by the state of Connecticut to have and offer lunch every day. And we have major limitations with our ability to serve lunch because we're not an elementary or a middle school. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Our students don't have, by grades, set lunch periods. So there's not, because our lunches are staggered throughout, we not only do we lack the space, we lack an alternative to be able to say, well, all freshmen will eat period 3 and all seniors will eat period 4. So there's these other issues just with the age group that pop up. But in addition, it's really space and how many people that were based on those guidelines as well. And like TJ said, using the less requirements, the lesser requirements, that we still lack the space with lunch as well.
Thanks, Mr. Bodnar.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me, TJ, and look
You're
forward to
welcome.
working with you all. Just to share a different perspective, my oldest was a girl and my senior now is a boy. Boys and girls, I can only speak for my son, but if it was my daughter, she would be missing so many of the things and maybe be in the position that your daughters are feeling. I know for my son, it's not that way. And whether it's a boy thing, and I've even talked to a few parents of friends to be like, are your boys like all upset that this stuff isn't happening? And it's almost like just to him, it's not. So for him, certainly he would love those things to happen, but it's not to the point where he is withdrawn or sad or those things. So just the different side, it's not everyone. And I know, for him personally, like he pretty, on his days that he's here, he's, meeting his friends at 2:15, and then they see each other then. And obviously it's not the ideal, but just a different perspective. To him and his friends, they're not seeing that. I think some of the things that, obviously are out of control, the fact that, juniors park in their lot and they don't have that special thing, those things. But, obviously, that was the right thing to do, was allow more kids to drive. But I guess the lack of feeling special because they didn't have those things. And then my other question or other point I just wanted to say, I also wear a hat in the Night in Hand committee. Well, as of right now, I'm the only person on the board. I've been the treasurer for the past 2 years. As you know, we sent out an e-notify to senior parents, but as of right now, there is no one to run Night in Hand. And some of the pushback that I've got this week, because I did post it out there to senior parents that we need someone to run the event or we're going to be, is, well, are we going to do all the work and then they're going to squash it anyway? And, my opinion is there will not be a traditional Night in Hand. The likelihood of that, to me, having seen it with my daughter, is probably minimal. But what I'm hoping is that, if it is a non-traditional graduation and it's similar more to last year, that, if a Night in Hand committee gets together, that we can, I think last year was so crazy because everyone had to throw things together at the end, but that there's more unison and communication with the high school as to what the graduation plans will be so that we can be more in sync. And then also just to manage everyone's expectations. But we'll see. Right now we have no one to run it.
You could handle it. We're confident.
I think that having a Zoom meeting or some kind of meeting to invite the parents to talk about Night in Hand. I know there are some parents, myself included, that have not gotten involved in past years, would like to get involved. I think once we talk through the process, I'm sure you'll have some people rising up to the task, as long as we know kind of what happened last year, what the options, and where you think that we should, be going with it. I think it's the unknown that people don't want to sign up
Well, I
for.
have plenty of people who have offered to help. I'm not concerned about that. And I'm not in charge. I just happen to be treasurer. So, and the person who ran it last year is ready to pass the baton and be done. So that's why I put something out there to let people know that we don't have anyone. But I've got a lot of people who said, oh, I definitely want to help. I just don't want to do it. So hopefully
That's a very good point. Couple of things, just if you commit to staying involved on this committee, which I hope you do, when we get closer to knowing what the end of the year actually looks like, you will be a major part in helping decide what graduation actually looks like. That's what we did last year with this committee, but we added about 8 senior students as well. And I'll never name your name, so you won't be, getting mentioned on Facebook negatively, but you will certainly help us make that decision, and it will be based on parameters. I mean, I like to try to be optimistic. I can't imagine, 286 students with thousands of people on the green is going to be approved. That would be great. But if it's not, we'll come up with a plan and what we think would be a great way to recognize our seniors. And your input will drive that. I'll just be the one who announces the decision, and I won't name your names. But I do think that's a really important piece. And Night in Hand, I think, is another, that was a letdown last year, but a lot of kids I heard did go to the alternative version, and they were just completely restricted. What I will say is, if space isn't an issue and numbers of people in buildings for gatherings allow for more than 280, you'll be able to have it at hand. But right now the gatherings inside, I think statewide, are 50 is the maximum. It's funny that doesn't apply to schools. We have about 700 total people in our building right now, but for events it's based on numbers. So I think we'll continue those conversations. I would like to think we're in phase 4. I don't know if there's a phase 5 in Governor Lamont's plan, but that will be really the deciding factor as to what we do.
TJ, when does a decision have to be made about prom? I know you said that the venue has a deadline as to when you have to cancel. When does that decision have to be made?
Well, the good news, Karen, is we do have both junior and senior proms booked. Woodwinds has been excellent, and they wrote something in their contract now where if they have to cancel because they're not allowed to host that many people, you get either your deposit back or you get to keep your deposit with them for the next class. And that's been really useful. So we do have, I believe this year's senior prom is at Anthony's Ocean View, which would be awesome. Brian, do you know if that's correct? I might be making that up.
I think Katie's on student council. I'm pretty sure it is at Anthony.
Yeah, which is great. We've never done that, and that's probably because it's easier to get a venue now because weddings are being postponed because you can't have as many people. It's ours right now, and the only thing, Karen, that will happen is if we wait too long, we'll eat a security deposit, which we will wait as long as we can. Ultimately, they give us about 2 weeks prior to, some facilities require about a month to get the total number of attendees there, just so they could have the appropriate amount of food. So that, that's late in June or early in June. There's definitely potential. None of those have been canceled or removed from calendars. A lot of it's going to depend on if the facility will allow numbers of that size. And, I already talked to the class officers, Mr. Hages and Mrs. Earls, with Mr. Bodner. If we have to pull the plug on prom, which will be a shame because the senior prom is actually a lot of fun. We like going to that one. That's a fun event. And I think we have to brainstorm like some senior picnic on a different site or something to have our kids do. The prom's going to be, up to the governor when it comes down to pure numbers. Typically, with a class size of 286, we're looking at 400 plus people in attendance. And right now, that's got no chance, but we'll see where we end up in June we could be in a good place. If we have a prom, we'll be having graduation on the green. I can't imagine those two don't go hand in hand.
Right.
We'll have to see what happens with the virus. The good news is it's in June and not April or May, so we have a chance.
Okay.
TJ, I just want to say, I don't envy you. You guys have an insurmountable task ahead of you. I think the big thing for our kids is that they see everyone trying to make this year the best they can be, and the lines of communication stay open. I think sharing ideas with the kids or student council or student leaders or whoever that might be is really important. I think the whole picnic thing at first, when Katie heard about it and she came home, she was like, this is terrible. We can't see anyone else in our cohort. We're not going to be able to play any games. We don't, But I think after talking about it and having you guys at the meeting the other day, trying to make the most of it, talking it up with your peers, take what you can get, when you can get it, because we don't know what the rest of this year is going to look like. So, but I think if they know that people are trying to make this year the best, I think that's huge for them right now. I have a junior in college who's home, whose school pulled the plug 2 weeks before he was supposed to go. And he's devastated because they didn't even try. There's a lot of schools out there that tried and sent kids home, or tried and went online for college and high school and elementary schools. But I think not trying anything is really what is frustrating the kids, especially with our numbers being low right now. So I think the picnic for them will be positive, even though it is in cohorts. And if they can repeat it in the spring as an entire class, that's even better. Only time will tell. But I think the communication with the kids and letting them know that you're looking at options and that you haven't just given up saying we're not going to be in school full time for the rest of the year. I think that's really important for them and for parents, because we need to stay positive too for our kids. We can't constantly be negative and bad mouthing whoever. We need to stay positive with even colleges.
We know whoever is.
Yeah, we need to stay positive in the college process and high school situation, and we have conversations all the time at our house about we understand your frustration, we're right there with you, but this is the way it is, and you're going to have to just do the best you can and move on. I mean, there's colleges Katie has applied to that she has not seen, that she's seen without kids, that aren't even doing tours right now, that are hot states that we can't go visit. So everybody, I think, is just doing the best we can, and you just need to keep the lines of communication open with the students, student leaders, whoever it might be.
Yeah, that's great. And really exciting news is we finally wrapped up the student leadership group through the election process. So we have our first student leadership meeting scheduled very soon, which really gives us a chance to talk to all 4 classes. And that's where the communication really will be beneficial. I'm going to ask kids to send me scheduling ideas. I mean, they may have a brilliant idea that I haven't thought of or Brian hasn't thought of. And to the picnic, we are having games, safe COVID-19 games. We have the ice cream truck ordered. All the food will be the same. It just will be packaged. So, it's a one-touch type of deal. It will be very, very similar to the typical picnic. And I think the kids will have a lot of fun. And we'll definitely get all their pictures for the yearbook, which is important, because if we wait till the spring, they can have a blue day, but the yearbook's done by the spring. And all of the really fun photos of the senior class in the gym, which we're still going to do, just a little farther apart, and out on the fields, and participating in the picnic and under the bridge will actually happen this week coming up, which we're excited about. So we already have Life Touch scheduled. That part of their experiences will be almost similar. And I already secured the funding necessary for a spring picnic with the whole group. And I think that could be exciting if we are able to do that. And we'll do that even if everything opens up and we have a prom, if we have a normal graduation. I would love to have the full senior picnic, because it's a lot of fun for staff too. I will tell you, the staff right here, knuckles are dragging. You know, this is the hardest they've ever worked in their lives. Not one teacher or administrator has gone into education to work in a hybrid model and, you know, deal with a pandemic. So we're balancing needs of the staff too. And, you know, you've seen some schools in the area shut down because of staff absences, you know, and it's not because it's like a union protest or something, you know, it's like a COVID related. Once you hit a certain number of teachers who are absent, you can't open anymore because we can't have a substitute list. Like we used to have 10 or 12 people, we would call in if 10 or 12 people were out. Now we have to pull people, teachers, off their preparation periods last minute and say, you get to cover this class outside your content area. So the staff is feeling this, you know, almost equally, and they are really struggling with this type of model. It's really difficult. And they're also really afraid. I mean, we're one of the only groups that have hundreds of people with us every day. You know, the business world doesn't have that, and there's a lot more restrictions. But I do think the communication to students will certainly increase starting next week. It was the PAW group meetings we did last week. 2 PAW groups actually wanted to talk to Mr. Bodner and with me. So we have them scheduled on Monday, which we are excited that they requested. I'm sure it's not all exciting news and they're not going to pat us on the back for the great job we're doing, but we certainly want their feedback. So the fact that they requested that is very positive, and we're going to do that Monday. And it's a if you want to come meeting as opposed to a you must come because you've asked. So that is certainly high priority, and we're trying to build that in right now. So if we go online, we still have that option. You know, Google Meet has gotten to be pretty effective. So we have all kids' email addresses in the MadisonPSrealm.org. So that is certainly on the list, but the feedback so far you're sharing is excellent and very, very helpful. We do plan to do something similar with this. How's it going? And then suggestion time. And I'm going to ask them to send me emails. You know, we might have some brilliant kids who could figure out how to schedule a high school differently, because most in the state and even beyond, Mr. Bodner was in a meeting with a tri-state group of high school assistant principals. And it was interesting to see that all of the groups, and they're really high performing schools like ours, are either full remote or hybrid. None of them are all in right now. And that was curious to see. And they're getting similar pressures, and they have similar concerns about the well-being of the students and the staff.
And I'll add to what TJ said, that this was over 30 high schools that participated, and the common theme was what we were sharing, that not only the lack of space inside their classrooms, in considering the size of high school kids as well, but the problems that you run into at the high school level with lunch, and the fact that you have students in all grades have the same lunch periods, and it's all dependent upon their schedule, which makes it a lot more complex as well. One other thing I just would like to piggyback on that TJ had mentioned with the picnic is please encourage your children to attend the picnic. I mean, we have heard some talk about, again, kids not wanting to go. I really, in my communication to the class, tried to emphasize when we gave them the vote that if we didn't do cohort picnics now, that we couldn't get those pictures that I'm sure they would enjoy looking at for the rest of their lives in their yearbook. And I was still stunned, despite mentioning that and the fact that we would do that second picnic in the spring, that close to 40% of them, I think it was 38.5%, still chose the option to only attempt to do a picnic in the spring, while 61% went with do them now and in the spring. That was surprising to see that. And I think that any additional encouragement you could ask them to spread to their friends, as I think some of you have already echoed, to take advantage of what we can right now, not knowing what lies ahead, I think would be very valuable. Because I don't think, as they're emotional, and I get it, we were all teenagers, I don't think they really processed that piece of it, that those blue photos and things, and we're hoping the photographer could manipulate something even where they take the cohort picture one day and piece it together with the other in the yearbook, and have the whole class blue picture. If not, at a minimum, we have the 2 cohorts photographed. But to do that, plus the pictures we gather from the picnic, I think would be really important for them later this year.
I just
So is
wanted to,
next week, oh, sorry.
go ahead. It's okay, Nancy.
So is it like a full blue day and they're gonna decorate cars and all of that stuff? Okay.
Yep,
So
we're sending, I'm
going
sending
out to the parents just to let them know that this is happening?
Yeah, I have a message that Mr. Bodnar queued up to go out at 2:00 today.
Okay,
So that's in that message. It defines the schedule next week. We're encouraging the little Halloween spirit as well for kids who are interested, because we do have kids dress up. But the 2 picnic days, we're asking the cohorts to wear their school colors. And for seniors, that's the blue.
okay.
And the other 3 grade levels, we're hoping they participate. We're doing actually wake-up calls, which are banned. We can't do them in the building, but first ever outside wake-up calls, which should be pretty cool. And Mr. Gage is excited for that. So you'll get a little more information from me. It's already in the queue to go at 2 today. And then Mr. Bodnar will send a little more detail to just the class of 21 and their parents about the picnic and, you know, some of the other details about next week that only pertain to seniors. So
Perfect, thanks.
good question, and that's already in the queue. I checked that one off the list early this morning.
So,
I think, sorry.
go ahead.
I just want to say, to Brian, what Brian said, like the reaction of the kids, like, I'm not going to go. I think that's just their rebellious teenage spirit and they're just feeling angry, right? I imagine they're going to go. And once they go, I think it will be the start of something good. I think they're going to see that it's different, but they're going to see the effort that you guys put in and they're going to feel special for that day. I remember graduation, everybody was so up in arms that that was going to be abysmal. And Grace attended like on the streets, like everybody else. And she said it was the best thing ever. And she hopes that her graduation would be like that. So, it's hard to face things that are different. And it feels like a letdown when these kids have been let down so many times by things we can't control. I think this is going to be the start of something good. And just to echo what Deb said, just validating their feelings as much as you can. TJ, I point my finger at you in jest, like before, that you're the blame guy, because really your assembly at the beginning of the year was really helpful. Like they really do want to hear that you're trying, that you're not just a bunch of grumpy old people, canceling stuff. It goes a long way. It goes a long way to be validated.
Yeah. I think that I just wanted to say to Deb and Missy that I think the positivity piece and the communication piece couldn't be any more important for our kids right now. And just brainstorming outside the box a little bit. Not for my own daughter, she's already done the Common App, but I've heard from other students that they would appreciate if guidance could do like, I don't know, maybe included on the Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, that they had like an open training sessions like we used to have in the summer via Zoom of how to go through the Common App. I know a lot of them will be done by November 1st, but I know there's also a whole nother group of students that would appreciate that would happen. In addition to that, I know we have like math labs and English labs. I don't know if there's any way to have some kind of general wellness assembly that they can Zoom into like we do for labs in terms of the Wellness Wednesdays, if that could be something, we could get different speakers to come in or, I don't know, we could brainstorm a lot of different ideas, but trying to think outside of the box to make sure the support's there, not only to make them feel so special on these picnics and all these wonderful events everybody is working so hard on, but also to have that consistently built into their schedule.
Great ideas. We are looking with, I don't know if any of you know one of our school psychologists. We actually have 2. Most people don't know that. We're planning a PTO presentation on supports that we have at the high school, and I think it's November 10th this upcoming month. We're looking to try to start a mental health awareness with a better name club, where we have like our school psychologist be the advisor because of her expertise, but let the students develop some of the ideas, Sarah, that you're mentioning. And what do you want to do? What can we do from a student's perspective and get that ball rolling? Because I do think there's a lot
I could fill you a little bit in offline. I know there's already a group that started. They have an Instagram page. They're already working on this and have speakers lined up and stuff like that.
Great. Send me some info. That'll be awesome. But we do want to make that transition to that mental health focus. Because, you know, to be really fair, I totally respect the student stress and staff's stress. What I've noticed more, I've been a principal for 18 years now, and I've never seen parents so stressed. And I'm hoping that people who are experiencing, who are adults, this level of stress are getting support as well. You know, I don't take it personally most of the time when people, you know, point fingers. I get it. That's part of my role. But, you know, I do worry about some parents who this is clearly having a very negative impact on their well-being. And I hope they're getting some support as well. And we did ask central office to send out, and they're working on it with Madison Youth and Family Services, something district-wide about, you know, social and emotional well-being for families, not just students, because this is really stressful. And as all of you know, I have 2 teenagers. You know, our emotions are contagious. You know, our kids watch how we respond, and, you know, sometimes they're seeing right now some things that are, I think, adding to the stress level. But I do worry about some of the adults as well, because this is overwhelming. You know, this is a pandemic that doesn't look like it's getting better soon, and it's very worrisome.
DJ, I actually have a couple questions. One, if a student needs to go in to meet with a teacher, for example, on a non-cohort day, is that allowed after school?
Yes,
Or
I just
Katie's
asked.
run into some issues where she's not in the building for 5 days,
Yeah.
but she's got to go over a test because for
Without
whatever
question.
reason.
100%. All we ask is have any of the children reach out to the teacher so they know they're coming. You know,
Okay.
because it's inconvenient for a student to come in and then, oh, Mr. Bodnar isn't even here.
Right, absolutely, right.
Right. Versus if you're here, you could check in with your
Right.
teacher and say, are you available? Yeah, that's for counselors too.
Right,
We're
okay, I was going to say for guidance too.
Yeah, that option is certainly available, and we're going to try and communicate that more. We've had a lot of kids take advantage of it already, which has been excellent.
I think if it's communicated a little better, or again, maybe, that might be helpful. I know Katie had some stress around that early last week, not being able to see a teacher for the next 5 days to talk to them about something, and not have to do it over Zoom, because I think sometimes that just doesn't work.
Oh, I agree.
The other question I have, and I know this is really far off, and I know this has been talked about in prior years, but is graduation set in stone as of right now? Or is that date still movable? Or is that date going to move based on snow days, if we have snow days, or school cancellations? Or is there any talk about, you know, what that might look like for?
So we've heard a few
Calendar.
different things. It's a great question. Right now, we are somewhat operating, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is potential for online learning to be used on snow days, which would be great. So the end of the year doesn't get extended. I can't confirm that. The Board of Ed will typically, or not typically, always decides the graduation date during the April Board of Ed meeting. And I do think it's a good point, because, you know, knowing when that date is very helpful, but also the flexibility. I mean, the school calendar has a last deadline date, like late in June every year, that the school year could be extended. But I do think online learning is a consideration to count as a school day if it occurs. I mean, if we have a blizzard and power's out for 3 days, that's a little bit different. Then, you know, we've all had the snow day announced early and not one flake comes down. And we could all embrace a school opportunity. But that, I'll try and get an answer. You know, we're in a little different time. You know, Dr. Patty Foot's been great working with us, but she's about to transition Dr. Cook in on December 7th, a brand new superintendent, not brand new, he's got tons of experience, but coming in December 7th in a pandemic, that's a big lift for him. He'll play a big role in moving forward with us. I believe she stays on with him through the winter vacation, and then she's finished with her assignment and he's all in by himself. So a lot of these questions will get passed to him. So it's definitely a little clunkier on the administrator side too, because we're talking about some year-end activities with her and she won't be here. So it's, you know, it's not, she's been great with me, and I talk to her probably too much every day, but that's a compliment because she's been so supportive.
TJ, I'm assuming that we're not going to have snow days anymore, right? We'll just go distance learning for those days?
I hope so. I know the state has to make that final decision, but it does seem like that's the right call. So feedback, fantastic. And I really appreciate the openness. Hopefully you didn't say you wasted an hour. What I would like your input on is I would like to plan about a monthly meeting, not necessarily every month. You know, some months get crazy. And does 7:30 work? Does 2 o'clock work? What's best in your lives? I know we can't meet everyone's needs.
7:30 is good.
7:30.
7:30 is fine. It's before work for me and Sharon.
Mine is fine.
Me too.
So awesome, that's great. So what I intend to do, we have some meetings with some seniors scheduled. We'll have student leadership scheduled. I'm going to gather that data and have some very similar conversations. And then I'll bring some of that information back to this group, and then we'll continue discussions. But what I ask is between now and the next time we meet, if there's a big concern that I don't know about, make sure you bring it to my attention, because we want to be very aware of that. But I think this group could help us keep a pulse on what's going on with our students and with our parents, and make some really good decisions where people feel supported. I've always embraced the fact that as a principal, we're certainly not going to make everyone happy with decisions that we make. That's a no-brainer. In this new environment of COVID, that's exaggerated incredibly. So there's no chance we're going to make everyone happy, but that's okay. But I will announce probably at the PTO meeting that I have a class of 21 parent group that we're talking about issues and brainstorming, and I'll maybe report out a little some of the topics, but I won't share your names because it's an unfair environment right now where, you know, people are on attack mode, and it's really unfortunate. You know, I'm okay with the attacks, but I don't want any parents or any students who help me make decisions get involved with any of the negativity that sometimes comes with decisions. And that's kind of the theme of the year right now, but I do think we can get not through this year. I think we could get to have a successful year with our kids, and I am excited to start talking with them and planning some focus groups. And I actually look forward to the picnic. You know, Mr. Bodner and I will be serving food out there. We'll eat a little too. And, you know, it's nice to be with the group the entire day, which is a lot of fun. And I do think they'll appreciate the break that is part of the picnic. And when we said that to the leadership group, I don't think they realize that it's kind of a break. You know, like, you know, it's a break. You get to relax, and we're hoping for some great weather. So I genuinely appreciate your time and input. Thank you all very much. If you have a brilliant or even a rough draft idea of a schedule for a 6-period high school with 963 kids, send it my way, and I genuinely mean that. Ask your kids if they have a great idea. Have them send me an email or schedule an appointment to come in and talk with me, because we are in that brainstorming mode. If we can come up, even if we get kids in here 20% more than they're in here now, that would be a plus. And we want more in person, but we want everyone to be safe so we don't have to go out.
TJ, can I just say something before we wrap up?
Sure, Karen.
Our son is attending Fairfield Prep this year, and just this school does a really, really good job, and they have since before the first day of school this year, of making the message very clear that the seniors are their priority, and making this year as close to normal as they can for them and special for them is their #1 priority. So I think it's just important for Han to relay that same message to the senior class and let the kids know that they're our priority this year. And this school is, you know, doing everything they can, you know, with this group and other things, and just making sure that that message is relayed to them, because as I think it was Missy that said, you know, they feel like they're not being heard. So if we can just continue to relay that message to them that they are our priority, I think that's really important.
That's great. We're on it. And we are also looking at some assembly discussions. Again, the challenge is space. You know, putting that many kids in an area, but the focus groups have proven to be a little better thus far because more kids will talk. the bigger the group, less likely. So this feedback was great. If something comes up in your head that you didn't say when we disconnect in a moment, send me an email and we'll certainly continue the conversation. I will look at scheduling another email in November, and I can't believe it's November soon, but I do think, again, we'll have kind of a set agenda, but you'll drive a lot of the discussion and decisions because it's really important. So I appreciate your time, everyone. Sarah?
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, great. I, again, really value your time and appreciate your willingness to Zoom. Maybe in the future we can do this in person, but if we're allowed to do it in person, we will be in normal mode. So that will be really cool. So keep your fingers crossed and wear a mask and wash your hands. Be safe. And
Thank
have
you.
a good Friday and a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.